Now, this next piece, and here's where I really want you to breathe. It's hard to mess up children. You have to actively give up because kids are resilient. And I tell some of my students this when it comes to counseling. If you show up twice, you say you're going to meet with them once and you meet with them again, and you do what you say you're going to do, they're not going to be mad at you. And they'll grow from the process. But it's very difficult because I've seen kids in some awful circumstances. Think about some of the kids who lived through Haiti. Think about kids who live right here in Long Beach, who are in transitional housing, or for lack of a better term, homeless, who are still able to come to school and get good grades and do well. Part of it is that their parents keep with a plan. They keep planning. They don't give up. And one of the things that would always concern me, there was another special ed teacher and I, we worked with students who had emotional disturbance. We can tell, and this was at the high school level, but we can tell when this kid was going to go to jail within 1 to 3 months. Because one thing would happen. His mother or whoever the single caregiver was for the kid would come to the school and say, I've given up. And this, it happened without fail. I saw this at least 20 or 30 kids, where the parent would come in and say, I've given up completely. I'm done. And that child would be in jail for one reason or another. So that connection, that bonding is important, that following up and having a plan. So having a plan is better than no plan. Even when times are tough, still continuing. And I was talking with some parents about this earlier this morning. One of them was concerned, he's 11 and he just doesn't want to do his homework. He's getting all A's before, now he's in middle school, he's in 7th grade, and that's 7th grade. I don't know if you've seen middle school kids, but nothing fits. Either it's too tight or it's too baggy. They had some friends last week and no, and my daughter always says, no, Dad, that's not what we're talking about. I have a whole new friend. And we're getting along just fine. I don't know what that was about. I said, but last week there was tears and people were upset and you need to talk to the principal. And no, we're fine. So that age is a lot of different demands on them. So let's get into some of these parent considerations. So plan ahead and respond to new challenges. Just continue if one thing isn't working, there's 6 months on, 6 months off. I don't know, and you see it usually when your 2-year-old says no, then eventually you're able to get a handle on that whole no episode. But then after about 6 months, they kind of figure out, I'm gonna push the boundaries again. That continues all the way through until they leave your house. It may be plus or minus a couple of months on the 6 months, but on average, it's about 6 months on, 6 months off, because they figure out the different ways that you're trying to discipline. I'm still trying to keep it with my daughter. Both my girls have all A's. I had not anticipated this. I was always in the principal's office and just barely made it. But they have all A's. So I keep asking my wife, because my wife is a class valedictorian, how are we going to discipline this kid? Because she's got all A's. But yet she's being kind of sassy. What are we going to do with that? Got to keep coming up with plans. So my wife and I continue to talk about it. Parent efficacy. Do I feel effective as a parent? There's ebbs and flows, but know if you are active and responsive, your child is on a natural trajectory. There's always going to be some ups and downs, but continue to have some type of plan in mind. Have a plan for how your child is, and how your child interaction is going with everyone else is doing it. What's your answer to everyone else is doing it? With my oldest one, she wanted a phone. Everyone else has a phone. I said, yeah, but everyone else doesn't live in my house. Everyone else doesn't pay my bill. So what are you going to use a phone for? That was a broader conversation. So we talked for about a month. And she put on a campaign. She got one of my mentors over at Cal State Long Beach, who's been teaching for 30 years, to get on me. She goes to my same church also. Your father loves you and he's going to give you whatever you want. But you need to be responsible. she gave a good talk and being responsible, but there was a point, I just didn't see the point in this phone. Why does this child need a phone? But you know, after she showed the responsibility, and I kind of calmed down because really I was cornered. I had her sister, her aunt calling from Alabama, you know, all kinds of people kind of locked me in, but we text all the time. And at least once a day I let her know, hey baby, I love you. Or you did a good job on that assignment. Okay? Even though she may be frustrated with me because I'll wear my Mr. T-shirt to drop her off at school. Have a plan for how your child is interacting with the peers, but also be intentional about what you want your child's character and values to be. And this is up to you in your home as well. Civic, cultural, ethnic, familial, especially if you're one generation away from a huge change in your family lifestyle. As we were talking about before, if you've immigrated or if you have a lot more money than you had growing up, be clear about what that means. Because one of the things I hear quite a bit is when kids go off to college, I didn't expect them to do that. Or they seem to have forgotten who they are. But they don't call me anymore. You know, that's a common one. They don't call anymore, they're not connected, but some of the other things are that they don't speak the language anymore, or they don't talk to grandma or grandpa like they should, or they're disrespectful to so-and-so. If you want those things to happen, you've got to be intentional about it, especially if you're not living in that same environment in which you grew up. And even if you are, it's still worth it to have more conversations. Parents sharing ideas. Every 1 month, I was going to say 6 months at first, but really 1 month, reevaluate how things are going with your child. Have a group of 3 or 4 families who share similar values and ideas about families and get together and talk about the short-term and long-term issues. You probably want to do that every 3 to 6 months. Because what I found, and I hadn't even thought this through, but we have a group of families who have similar values, and we do sharing, child care sharing. But we also afterwards we'll sit around and sometimes we go, oh man, I'm glad it's not just me. Yeah, my kid's about the same age. And I usually have some other folk who are plus or minus 5 years from us, and their kids have either gone on to college or their kids are still younger, and we'll talk about this whole parenting thing. You don't have to do it alone. Remembering, having one time a year to remember deceased relatives, to really heal. Sometimes, I know for me, when my grandmother passed away when I was 12, and I mentioned before my father's from the silent generation, this was his mother, not talking about it really didn't help. Okay. But there came a point where we all needed to, my sister and I both. And once we started talking about my grandmother, certain things made sense for us. And they were able to tell stories, but it was hard for them. But we were able to see a better connection about who we are. So it's worth it to at least have those conversations. It may take a while, but you got to plan how you're going to have those conversations. Okay, if they're gone, deployed, incarcerated, or sometimes family members are lost to the family.